Welcome in to the College Football Power Hour Heisman edition of the podcast. He's Jason Fitz. That is Adam Breneman. And I am Caroline Fenton. Travis Hunter is your 2024 Heisman Trophy winner. Ashton Jeanty, the runner-up. Dylan Gabriel at 3. Cam Ward coming in at 4. All the action going down Saturday night in New York City. Fitz, it was Travis Hunter was an overwhelming favorite on the sports books to win the Heisman Trophy. This show unanimously crowned Travis Hunter the winner of the Heisman Trophy last week on the podcast, yet I still felt like on social media, a lot of the conversation was maybe a little bit of surprise, maybe a little bit of disappointment even. Should there be a surprise?
I don't think it should be a surprise, but I think you're right. Like, look, I'll go to the context. I was leaving Madison Square Garden last night after going to the UConn-Gonzaga game. And even on the train, the entire conversation, the entire way home was everybody saying, how did Ashton Jeanty not win the Heisman? And I'm sitting there like we all do in these situations where you want to get into a debate, but that's what we do for a living. Don't really want to do it on the train. I was a little stunned that everybody seemed to miss the boat on this. And I think miss the boat's the only way to say it. I interviewed RG3 this week for Yahoo. And of course, he can't reveal his vote. He can't reveal how he was leaning, but he made it very clear that Travis Hunter's a unicorn. And sometimes when you see a unicorn, you just got to stop and appreciate. It doesn't mean that Ashton Jeanty, Adam, isn't badass. Like, I think that's part of this is everybody's like, well, how can you not? No, I think all of this can be done where we still appreciate the greatness of Ashton Jeanty. It's just this year you saw a unicorn, and a unicorn is going to beat most things that you've seen at some point in history.
Yeah, and this was a pretty close race, way closer than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I think I saw somewhere it was the closest Heisman race for the last 5-10 years, separated by about 200 total points between Hunter and Jeanty. So I thought it'd be more of a blowout in Travis Hunter's favor. The lesson is, if you want to win the Heisman, don't go to Boise State. I mean, that's the differentiator in this whole thing, is that Ashton Jeanty played a group of 5 competition. If Jeanty put up the same numbers versus a Big 12 schedule, he would have won the Heisman in an absolute landslide, but he didn't. He played at Boise State. So I'm glad it came down to Hunter and Jeanty. I love that it's not just a quarterback award. It was a very unique year for the Heisman Trophy. I mean, the fact that we have a two-way player, the fact that there was not a quarterback in the top 2, the fact that a lot of these guys were from the West Coast, I think it was cool. But ultimately, the Heisman voters picked the right choice in Travis Hunter winning this thing. What Hunter has done, winning the Benerick Award, Blitnikoff, the snaps he's played on both sides of the ball, as we've talked about a lot. His production was elite, and it's not like he was just an elite wide receiver and an okay defensive back. He was a lockdown at corner. He was elite on offense, and he made some huge plays all season long. I think they got it right.
I'm going to hop in real quick here, Adam, because I don't agree with you. I say as gently and respectfully as I can.
You're allowed to say that with some force, you know?
Yeah, don't say it gently.
Whatever
You're
numbers
wrong.
Ashton Jeanty was going to put up. Look, you lost. Oh, wait, we'll do this full first take style. You have lost your mind. What are you talking about? Look, I mean, if we're being real here, Ashton Jeanty can put up those same numbers playing for Georgia. I don't give a damn. Like, it doesn't change the fact that we saw a unicorn. Being one running back is not the same as being 2 different players at 2 different positions on the field that's making a massive impact. We talk about this all the time, but I genuinely think that there is nothing Ashton Jeanty could or should have done that would have given him a better opportunity to take on the Heisman, because it's a bad year to be really good at something, because Travis Hunter's great at 2 things. So, like, you can't just be the best running back in the country. I mean, as you mentioned, Travis Hunter won the Blitnikoff and is considered widely to be one of the better corners in the game, right? So you got somebody that when he is drafted, and he will be drafted, likely the first non-quarterback off the board, he's going to have the opportunity on Sundays to play 2 different positions. Like, that's just, you're not beating. I don't care who you put those numbers up for. You're not beating that.
But even if we get into the nitty gritty of the actual Heisman votes here and the total points, even with Ashton Jeanty playing group of 5 football at Boise State, they were 200 total points away. I think if Ashton Jeanty is at a Power 4 school, he wins this thing. And maybe it's still close, but I mean, it was pretty darn close with Jeanty being a G5 guy and Hunter having the season he had. So I think if you put Jeanty on any Big 12 team, put them on, swap their teams around, I mean, Jeanty is winning the Heisman Trophy, in my opinion. I think Jeanty was that good of a running back this year. His only issue is that he didn't play great competition. And listen, I'll also say he wouldn't have put up those numbers in a Power 4 team. I don't think he would have. But if he did, he should win the Heisman.
But I think if it was any other year, if we're talking about any other year in the Heisman Trophy race, I think Ashton Jeanty probably wins it. I don't think the biggest thing working against him is the fact that he played for a Group of 5 school, because I think that Boise State has kind of been, I don't want to say appointment watching all season long, but it's not like Boise State has been this itty-bitty little old rinky-dink team all year. They're in the playoffs. So I think the biggest thing working against Ashton Jeanty in the whole conversation of the Heisman Trophy is the fact that he was going up against a guy that is doing something in college football that we have literally never seen before. If we insert Ashton Jeanty into the Heisman race, let's just say last year, with Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr., and Jaden Daniels and Marvin Harrison Jr., I think he probably wins it. So I don't think it's Boise State's problem. I don't think it's a brand problem. Maybe it's a factor of a lot of people probably haven't watched a whole lot of Boise State games. Maybe it's a factor of the only Boise State game a lot of people have watched was when they played Oregon earlier in the year, but he still went off in that game, Fitz.
Yeah, you're right. And here's what's interesting to me. I'm going to give Ashton Jeanty some massive flowers. I think Ashton Jeanty this year has actually saved the first year of the college football playoff, because lost in all of this conversation about seeds and automatic bids and qualifiers and who gets to go in, the fact is this year, because of Ashton Jeanty, we have a Heisman Trophy finalist that was debatable to some to be the winner on a Group of 5 team that all of a sudden is getting a different level of respect. Like if next year that Group of 5 automatic qualifier is a Tulane team or a UNLV team like I've talked about, or a Memphis team that's barely squeaking into the top 25 that nobody's watched and nobody knows a single player of, and we're all just sort of eyes glassed over, and that team goes in and gets their asses kicked in the first round of the college football playoff, we will lose our minds. And Ashton Jeanty delayed that entire debate an entire year simply by being great at what he does. Like, we are viewing the Group of 5 like, no problem, you belong. We're not sitting here saying, well, you know what, guys? Wait, a Group of 5 team in the first year had arguably the best player in college football that was definitely worthy of Heisman consideration. Like, that changes the whole context of the way we view the playoff, all because of Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah, he's changed the game. And not only did he do it against the G5 competition, he also did it against Oregon when they played. And I think that has changed how we view Group of 5 teams and what they mean in the playoff, and the fact that Boise got a first-round bye completely changed this whole thing. And Fitz, you know how fast college football has been to changing the playoff structure. I mean, if a Group of 5 team went in and got blown out round 1 of the playoffs, I bet pretty quickly there'd be a lot of people saying, why the heck are they getting an automatic bid? It would get changed pretty quickly, I think. So he's changed the game. I think when you think about Travis Hunter, and I was trying to think about, every guy has kind of a Heisman moment, right? Like what's the moment where they won the Heisman Trophy? It is tough when you think about Travis Hunter, because he was just so good at both sides of the ball, so many different snaps. If I had to pick one Heisman moment that I feel like he had, it was probably the forced fumble in overtime against Baylor when Colorado was 2-1. Remember that early in the season? Colorado had lost a game. Everyone was trying to figure out who Colorado really was. And in their first Big 12 game, Hunter forced that fumble in overtime, sealed the game. That was a huge play. And I think back to that moment of, man, this guy's really good on defense as well. Like, we knew he was a good receiver. We knew he was playing a lot of snaps on defense, but how good was he really? And I thought that was kind of a moment for me that Travis Hunter stood out as a true generational talent playing both ways.
And that's a game as well, as I'm pulling up a stat sheet. Okay, I think I was thinking of the Oklahoma State game where he had 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. Like that, I think that was it to me. And the Baylor game, I thought was like, he had a forced fumble that basically ended the game, that iced the game, and also had multiple touchdowns. But I couldn't discern it because there had been so many games that Travis Hunter has played in this season where he's done something like that he makes a game-changing, game-breaking kind of defensive play and also puts up multiple touchdowns. And I bring up the surprise factor, or maybe the outrage factor that I've seen on social media, which, it's social media, so take it with a grain of salt. And I kept asking myself, why? Why was there so much outrage, confusion, debate about whether or not Travis Hunter was worthy of the Heisman Trophy? Because we were just talking about certain Heisman moments, plays, individual games where he's done things that nobody has done before. Shohei Ohtani-esque performances from Travis Hunter. So I kept asking myself, okay, why? Where is the disconnect here? And I think a lot of it, frankly, comes from disdain for the Colorado program, annoyed of the Colorado media circus, of what Deion Sanders has brought to that program, of just people that I think it's Colorado fatigue. But I think that anyone who's maybe tired of the Deion Sanders Coach Prime thing going on at Colorado, I disagree with you. I think it's great for college football and I enjoy it, but I understand that it exists. Anyone that feels that way, go listen to Travis Hunter's Heisman acceptance speech. Go watch how excited he was after he won that award. The first person that he went to is his fiance, his mom, and Coach Prime. And how passionate Coach Prime was for Travis Hunter. The way that Travis Hunter spoke about Deion Sanders. I think anyone who's tired of the whole Prime thing can watch that and say, that's what college football should be about. The relationship that Travis Hunter has with his head coach. In a world of college football where it's transfer portal and coaches going on to new jobs, coaches going on to the NFL, where you might have a relationship with a coordinator or a coach for 1 year and you don't really build that relationship. That was like a father and son kind of relationship that I don't think that we see as frequently in today's day and age of college football. It was very refreshing and very sweet, frankly, to see, Fitz.
I mean, how much did that change also, or at least impact the sales pitch for Deion in general? At this point, Deion Sanders can go to every kid in the country and say, you know what? Play for me and I can get you Heisman. Play for me, I can get you NIL. Play for me, I can get you star power. I can get you name recognition. And guess what?
Put you in a KFC
By the time
commercial?
I get to the draft, play for me and I can get you the... yes. And I know his kid's part of this, but hell, he's going to be able to look around and say, play for me. And even if you're not my kid, I can get you the first non-quarterback drafted off the board, I believe. And frankly, he can say, come play for me. And I'm going to have 2 of the top 5 players drafted in this year's NFL draft. That's a wild sales pitch to be able to go into living rooms and say, hey, you can win a Heisman. You can be drafted at the absolute top of the NFL draft. You can dominate the entire commercial landscape. And you can do it with Colorado if you come play for Prime. That hits different.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Hunter's Heisman win was really proof of Deion Sanders' vision. I kept thinking about how Deion has been unconventional in how he's coaching, and it's trickled down to his players in Travis Hunter. I mean, it was really validation of Deion Sanders' coaching philosophy. Deion has embraced Travis Hunter and how he can play both ways on both sides of the ball. And a lot of coaches wouldn't support that. I mean, you know how many players in college football, now, not all of them are Travis Hunter, but a lot of guys try to play both ways in college football, and coaches don't let them do that. I think Deion really has showed through this how some bold coaching decisions can redefine what success looks like in college football, and it's working at Colorado. Travis Hunter's Heisman win is also it's trailblazing for future recruits too. I mean, you look at what Travis Hunter's done from flipping from Florida State as the #1 recruit in the country to go to Jackson State to play for Deion Sanders, to then go to Colorado. I think it sends a powerful message that for recruits, for big-time players, that it's okay to chart your own path. And it can pay off in historic ways like it just paid off for Travis Hunter. It's more about finding a fit and an opportunity over the big-time program or the most prestige in a program. Travis Hunter I will change how a lot of recruits view their college careers and where they go where they commit to and where they transfer to. And I think that connection of Deion and Travis Hunter, of finding that fit and following a coach, no matter where he's at, is going to be a trend we see in college football because of a guy like Travis Hunter.
Adam, you mentioned earlier the sort of your crowning moment for Travis Hunter. I just want to say this. I think a lot of people continually look, especially when you play two positions, they look at it and talk about the result on the field. To me, when you talk about Travis Hunter's greatness, a lot of that this year was encapsulated in a loss. Like, they lost to Kansas. Colorado got outplayed by Kansas. But there was one clear thing on that day. That Kansas did everything they could, like everything they could to try and slow down Travis Hunter, and they couldn't. They had him triple teamed on some of these things, which in college football is difficult to do. And he still catches a little route, runs his way around, gets to the sideline, turns it into a 40-yard gain. Like, to me, I looked at a game that they lost and thought, man, 2 touchdowns in that game, a huge game, and Kansas threw everything at Travis Hunter that they could to slow him down, and he was still Herculean on the field. It's just a reminder that no one player can ever be assigned wins and losses. They are not a player stat. They are a team stat. They're not quarterback stat. They're a team stat. They're not a wide receiver, defensive back stat. They are a team stat. And I thought that Kansas game, watching a team in a loss and saying, man, even when you lose, you can't slow down Travis Hunter, that to me speaks to greatness on the field.
And I think it can also speak to the fact that now we have a few years of a sample size of there's not one path to greatness in college football. There is not one path to the Heisman Trophy ceremony in New York City. We've seen that the last few years. Last year, I think, was probably a hat tip to the transfer portal of life after your first stop. We saw it with Michael Penix, with Jaden Daniels. We saw it with Bo Nix. This year with Dylan Gabriel and Cam Ward, they both have had very, different paths. That's 2 guys that we haven't really touched on. Cam Ward coming in 4th place in votes, and Dylan Gabriel coming in 3rd. I kind of expected it to shake out that way, that it was going to be a 2-man race between Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter, and the quarterbacks would just kind of fall where they may from there. Adam, I am intrigued because there's been a lot of commentary about the Heisman Trophy ceremony, how this is, 7 of the last 8 Heisman Trophy winners before Travis Hunter won on Saturday night were quarterbacks. It's largely viewed as a quarterback award. This year, the top 2 finishers, Travis Hunter, who plays wide receiver and DB, and then obviously Ashton Jeanty, who plays running back. Is this a new trend in college football, or is this year just kind of an outlier as far as the quarterback position is concerned?
I think it's an outlier. I do. I think we'll be year after year consistently in the future. We're going to continue to see that this is a quarterback award for the quarterback that plays the best at one of the top teams in the country. We don't normally have players like Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty. I mean, what those 2 guys have done is incredible. And it's the reason that they're 1 and 2 in the Heisman votes, and that Dylan Gabriel, the best quarterbacks in the country, on the best team in the country, is 3rd. I think that the other factor in this year's voting and how it played out was that Dylan Gabriel is not quite dynamic enough of a quarterback and didn't quite dominate the stat sheet enough and have enough individual performance in that offense he plays in to supersede or pass over a guy like Travis Hunter, Ashton Jeanty with the kind of seasons those guys had. Now that's really unique, and really the most electric quarterbacks in the country were Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, guys that didn't have great finishes to the season. So combine all that with with Travis Hunter and Ashton Jeanty, and we get the result we had. The highest quarterback list was 3rd in the Heisman voting. But I don't think that'll be the trend in the future. I don't think we're going to see a 2-way player like Travis Hunter for a long time. Ashton Jeanty's performance was generational as well. And I think what's going to usually happen is the best teams in the country will have the best quarterbacks in the country who are electric and playing great football, and that will earn them the Heisman Trophy. That'll be the trend time after time, in my opinion, and we won't see a lot of non-quarterbacks winning the Heisman. I think we'll continue to see guys in the voting, like Tyler Warren finished 6th or 7th in the Heisman voting. Cam Scadaboo finished 5th, which I think was great. But ultimately, I think you look at the trends over the next few years, I think we'll see more and more quarterbacks continuing to win the Heisman.
Let's take a second, too, and just acknowledge, because you mentioned Dylan Gabriel, and I think about this a lot with Dylan. We've talked a little about it, but, man, Dylan Gabriel is the living, eating, breathing example of everything that's great about the opportunities that athletes are given in NIL, right? Like, there aren't many people that expect Dylan Gabriel to play on Sundays, which means his football career that he's worked his whole life for is going to be encapsulated in whatever happens now in Oregon. This will be the lasting moment of his legacy. The fact that, according to reports, he's making about $1.5 million in NIL this year and has made $5 million in his career. I keep thinking about the fact that, look, how much is Oregon going to make if they win a national championship? And the guy that will have to get them there, having the opportunity to really make lifetime money that, can at least get him set to start his life the way he wants to. I think it's one of the beautiful things about college football. Like, we spend so much time obsessing over which of these guys are going to play on Sundays. What about the guys that are never going to play on Sundays, that are just, they're giving it for this?
And it's a good testament to the transfer portal and the opportunities it gives guys. I mean, 6 of the last 8 Heisman winners were transfers, guys that transferred from one school to another. So if anyone, for all the hate the portal got for a while, the portal has given tremendous opportunities to players all over the country, like a guy like Dylan Gabriel, who can go make generational money by transferring and set his family up for the rest of his life. Who knows what he does in the NFL, but it's a great use case for the transfer portal and how it can work out for you.
With that, I mean, Adam, the worldwide internet is always accurate. We know that. But there were reports this week that Michigan State's prepared to offer Quinn Ewers $4 million to come play 1 year at Sparty. Yeah, I think that's what's going to start happening. Quarterbacks are going to look around and say, man, I don't know. Like, I'm a fringe 2nd or 3rd round pick. I might be able to make it in the league. I might not, but I can go out and I can change my life to play 1 more year of college football, which, by the way, might help me figure out how to be a better pro quarterback if I get the opportunity to do that. Like, it's win-win for everybody involved. If Michigan State can get a quarterback and, Quinn Ewers could turn around and get a bunch of money, if this were to happen. I'm just saying that in the grand scheme of things, these portal opportunities that you talk about, not only are they good short-term, I think long-term they're good for the development of a lot of these players, and that shined during the Heisman.
Those are the perfect examples that I try to hammer on anytime I hear, the old heads and the traditionalists of college football. Like, I think NIL is ruining college football. Why? Why? Is it flawed? Inherently, 1,000% it is. Does there need to be some sort of revision to sustain the current model that we have in college football? I would say yes, and that's a completely different story for a completely different day. And the transfer portal, that's ruining college football. No, it's not. Actually, I think it's making things even better in college football. You're seeing players stick around a little bit longer because there is a financial incentive attached to it. Some of these decisions of, should I play in the bowl game? Should I come back for another year? Feel a little bit more nuanced now, and there's a little bit more of an actual discussion to be had there, because it's no longer, well, if I come back next year and I get hurt, then I don't have an opportunity to provide for my family. Those opportunities are provided to them now. I had the same discussion about Cam Rising when he was deliberating, do I come back to Utah for my 37th year of college football? Do I not? I thought, well, why not? I don't think he's going to play on Sundays, and if he does, I don't think that he's going to be making $40-50 million a year like starting quarterbacks are making in the NFL. So why not come back for your 115th year of college football and make a little bit of money and have another year with your teammates? Like, why not? It's good for college football when good players stick around longer.
Anytime somebody tells me that this, insert whatever their issue is killing college football, my answer to that is, how? Specifically, how is it killing the sport? Because what I see is a college football playoff that has record level of interest. It has teams in it that we are never talking about as national championship contenders. I see a Heisman ceremony that didn't have an SEC player in it at all. I see a Heisman ceremony that gave us a Colorado Heisman winner, a group of 5 Heisman finalists, and transfer portal quarterbacks that turned around seasons for their respective programs. Like, I'm looking around saying, like, what is your serious complaint? Is it Marshall and their ability to play in a bowl game? Well, I thought you told me bowl games are meaningless. Like, so now we're moving the needle on what's meaningful and what's meaningless. Like, I don't know. Every time somebody tells me that the game is broken, even people that cover the sport, there are media people that cover the sport that keep tweeting out, system's broken, gotta fix it. Really? Is it? Because seems to me like interest is better than ever. There's more teams involved than ever. Players going to more schools than ever. There's more interest than ever. Like, what do you complain about? Shut up.
Yeah, there's more parity than ever. I mean, the sport of college football has never been stronger, and it's the reason that the television viewership's better year after year after year after year, despite everyone hating NIL in the portal. So it's never been better. The sport's in a great place. I think year one of the playoff. Listen, there's flaws, but this has been fun. It's been a fun year to figure this whole thing out. The Heisman, following the Heisman this year has been fun. It's been a good year. And I think, listen, are there some changes that have to happen? Do we need to rethink how we do first round buys in the playoff? I think so. But this has been so fun. Every game has been more meaningful, and I was wrong about that. I thought that games would become less meaningful. That's not the case. I mean, more and more teams, Army's playing games week 11 that are meaningful for the college football playoff. I mean, like those games meant nothing before. And now every team has some kind of path to how can they make the playoff or how does it affect teams on the bubble in almost every game that we see.
Is the sport perfect? No, absolutely not. Are there issues that need to be resolved? Absolutely 100%. But I look at the top 10 Heisman finalists. From Colorado, Boise State, Oregon, Miami, Arizona State, Army, Penn State, Colorado, Indiana, and Syracuse. Like, there's more parity in the sport now, and we're seeing that in the college football playoff. But the Heisman Trophy and the finalists and the lists of votes and the top 10 players receiving votes, like, I think that's indicative of now there's a little bit more to be spread around. Gone are the days where it's just Alabama everything and Ohio State everything. It's good for the sport when you have parity. I'll put a bow on this conversation, take a quick break, and get some Army-Navy reactions on the other side. I love Army-Navy. I mean, I think the pre-game festivities of Army-Navy, you're not going to get a better ceremony anywhere else in sports. Like, it gives me chills every single time. The flyovers, just what it means, the sentiment of all of it is just, and there's nothing more American than Army-Navy. And there is nothing more Army-Navy than 172 total passing yards in a football game. Just a masterclass in the Army-Navy game that we got yesterday. But Navy takes it 31-13. Frankly, that was not how I saw that game shaping out. But Adam, your thoughts on the Army-Navy?
A dominant performance by Navy. Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, Army all season long has been a much better football team than Navy has been. Really, you think about Navy's season. Navy was top 25 at one point, and then lost to Notre Dame, and their season kind of went off the rails. Lost a few games in a row, and Army stayed consistent. But the reason Army was so good all season long was they didn't turn the football over. Bryson Daly was so good with the football. He had thrown one interception all season long, threw 3 interceptions against Navy. Listen, what they did all season long was they ran the ball well, then took those shots down the field, and that was different from the Army team we had seen for previous years. But Army liked to take shots and liked to take risks. A lot of trick plays, a lot of big explosive plays down the field, throwing the football. I thought Army tried that a little bit too often in this game against Navy. Just got a little too excited, a little bit too much risk. It didn't stick to Army football that makes them so good. I mean, Blake Horvath, Navy quarterback. We've talked a lot more about Bryson Daly, Army's quarterback. Navy's quarterback, Blake Horvath, is one of the best in the country. I mean, what he's done all season long. I mean, in the middle of the season, he had Heisman odds before their season went off the rails after that loss to Notre Dame. Horvath with 310 yards in this game, 4 touchdowns, threw for 2, rushed for 2 touchdowns himself. I mean, I thought Horvath was really, really good running the football, and the scheme, the way that Navy leans a little bit more on the fullback dive and faking the dive than a lot of other triple option teams do, and using that opened up so much for the Navy offense, and Army was just keen on that fullback dive, and Horvath was on the perimeter all the time. And I thought Navy did a really good job as well of just that perimeter blocking. In that triple option offense, you have to be good on the perimeter blocking with your receivers, and Navy was. They dominated this game and got the big win for it. And as these coaches will tell you, I've called both these teams' games this season. Brian Newberry and Jeff Monken openly say the most important thing for our season is winning the Commander-in-Chief Trophy, is beating Navy, is beating Army. That's all. Like Jeff Monken was talking about the AAC championship, and he was like, the thing that sucks about the championship game is now, like, we don't have a rest before we have to play Navy. That's all he was thinking about. And ultimately, Navy takes this one home in a big win.
Yeah, well, Adam, come on, coming into this game, if we'd have had to put money on which quarterback was going to perform better, I think we would have all taken it the other way. Daly came into this game tied with Ashton Jeanty for the most rushing touchdowns in college football this year. Like, there was nothing there for me. You know what? I haven't been killed on social media in a few days. I'll just say it. I think at some point, Army-Navy is like when you go to the movies, right? And you go see a preview, and it's going to be the best movie in history. Like, you're like, oh my God, I cannot wait to go see this movie. And then you go see the movie, and you realize, like, yeah, it that's fine. Like the pomp and circumstance that leads up to it is emotional. Like just the national anthem is like, if you don't have tears, you don't have a soul. Like all of these moments, you see what it means to everybody in the stadium, and it's great. And then midway through the first half, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go do some laundry while this is on. Like it's just
So you hand him out.
It's fun. No. Yeah, see, no, Caroline, that's your earlier this season. Caroline established that. No, I love America. It's just the Army-Navy game. It's better in theory than it is in execution sometimes. I'm glad we got one that actually had some points. I'm glad I'm glad we can hammer, sometimes at least hammer the over on the Army-Navy game.
I was on did a guest spot on a betting show earlier this past week, and they were like, I think 80-something% of the Army-Navy games go under the point total. And I was like, oh, no, not this year. Not this year. It's going to be like a 45-42 kind of game, which I don't even know what the over-under point total was. If you said it at like 15, I think the under would still probably hit a majority of years. But I think I might be swallowing my words a little bit. I mean, at least Navy took care of business. Army, not so much. But I'm with you, Fitz. I think it's okay to say that the pregame festivities are the peak of the game.
Adam, do you think the rest played any part?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, Fitz. I think a little bit. I mean, Army's pretty banged up, and Army has had a physical season that every game has meant something for Army down the stretch and had to play in that AAC championship game. So I think it played a role. But when I watched this game, the issue for Army wasn't fatigue. It wasn't. Most of their starters played in this game. I think they missing 2 guys on defense, but it was mistakes. It was the turnovers. It was Bryson Daly making bad decisions and ultimately taking too much risk on offense. So I think the rest always plays a factor in this one, especially how physical the game is. But I didn't see an Army team that was fatigued or getting pushed around. I saw an Army team that made mistakes, and you're not going to win games, especially if you run Army's offense throwing 3 interceptions, turning the football over like they did. I do think it's a big win for Brian Newberry. I mean, he has really turned this Navy program around. Think about Navy last year. I mean, they were terrible. To win the Commander-in-Chief trophy, first time since 2019 Navy has won it. It says a lot about what Brian Newberry's done in a short time at Navy, and they use physicality, they use explosive plays, they have a dynamic quarterback. That's Navy football, and that's how you win games. And I think for Jeff Monken and Army, for as good as their season has been, man, this overshadows a little bit of it. Losing to Navy like that. I mean, this is the game everyone cares about. But I think for all of us, we got to, all the Army supporters, anyone that loves good football, anyone who cares about academy football, you still got to appreciate what Jeff Monken and Army have done this season despite losing this game. My final point is, can we please make this a conference game? This game should be meaningful to college football. Both these teams were playing for a playoff bid this year. I mean, there are paths for Army and Navy to make the college football playoff. And yet this game is after conference championship, is not a conference game. It's not part of the AAC slate. So what happens is Army and Navy have one less game to play before the playoff rankings come out, before, this game is ultimately not that meaningful because to the grand scheme of the country and to college football because of when it's played. Let's move this game to during the regular season, make it an American Conference game, and make it even more meaningful.
Why don't we move this here's how we make Army-Navy even bigger. Make it the season opener every year. Everybody flocks to the season opener for college football. Awesome. Everybody loves the dynamic of it. Make it count, make it part of it, and start every year with the pomp and circumstance we talked about. It's the best lead up to any game in sports, I would argue. It's this incredible, heartfelt moment. Make that the way we kick off the entire standalone Army-Navy first Saturday of college football, and then blast through the season from there. I
want Jason Fitz as my college football commissioner. I want him figuring out these issues because he thinks he's a forward-thinking, innovative Fitz for commissioner.
You know what? We're going to make this happen. Adam, I will find you a seat on my cabinet.
Caroline, can I be your vice commissioner?
Yeah, Caroline, as long as Caroline comes too, because she needs absolutely to help us not act like idiots in those positions of power. But I'm in for this.
No promises.
I'm in for this.
I'm only one woman. I can only do so much. But I'll get the t-shirts printed. I'll get the buttons. I'll be the head of the merchandise committee. And everyone's going to be sporting game day buttons that says Fitz for commissioner. It's just a photo of Fitz with 2 thumbs up.
Here's by the way, that is great.
That'll be our thumbnail.
Perfect.
Eddie, write that down.
Here's the reason I think I could do this, right? Because part of being the commissioner is getting everybody to play nice in the sandbox. Every single every single league has got to come in and decide that they want to be a part of what you're doing. This is what everybody misses out on. Like, I would bring donuts. There's a very simple principle here. If everybody's mad and you bring a bunch of donuts in the room, if you walk into like mommy and daddy fighting at the highest possible level and you lay out a bunch of donuts and you say, before we start talking, I brought an array of donuts. Everybody starts eating donuts. They're happier mood. Then you start the conversation. I feel like I could simply get all the commissioners into a room, bring in an array of donuts, pastries, maybe some fine sweets, and then some good coffee. And then by the time we've disarmed everybody and everybody feels more engaged, now all of a sudden, maybe Greg Sankey wants to play a little nicer with everybody. Maybe all of a sudden we feel good about things. Donuts and moving around games. I got this all figured out.
See,
Donuts save college football.
Donuts are a good call over like a Danish. Nobody likes Danishes or a scone.
I do. I like Danishes for what it's worth. But
you're a Danish guy. Adam seems like a Danish guy.
You really don't. Deep down, you don't love Danishes. It's the pastry that you eat because it's the only one left at the buffet. And it's like, well, I want a little something sweet. So I'll pick up the cream cheese Danish. Now, donut's the way to go. That's why Fitz is my commissioner.
Adam, stick with me. You'll learn. You'll learn. All right. See, these are learning opportunities.
Teach me the ways, please.
Exactly.
We're going to use some coach speak here. You know what? There's no losses, just learning opportunities. Adam, we learn from this, and next time, maybe as a group, we don't present Danish.
And I'm coachable. I'm a coachable guy, so 100%. I'll learn fast. I don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah, and that's good to hear because we don't need any Danishes on this program. Now we can talk about bagels. Bagels, that's fair. They have to be the right kind of bagel, but to hell with your Danish. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back on Wednesday. A little bit of a change up this week with the schedules. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll have our full pre-college football playoff thoughts. We'll have full previews for each games, our official picks and predictions for the college football playoff. But until then, you can catch up with us on Twitter. He's at Adam Breneman81. He is at Jason Fitz, and I am at Caroline Fenton 1. We always appreciate you guys for stopping by the podcast. So like it, subscribe, review, leave a nice little comment for us. We always like to see those. Tell your friends about it. Tell the people that you hate about it. Tell everybody about it because we always appreciate you guys for stopping by. We'll see you on Wednesday.